June 6, 1944. The beaches of Normandy. Thousands of young American soldiers prepare to step into the most consequential battle of their lives. The wind cuts across their faces, artillery thunder shakes the air, and in their hands they grip the only thing standing between survival and oblivion. But these weren't just any weapons. These were machines born from American ingenuity, mass-produced with unprecedented speed, and designed with one singular purpose: to turn the tide of the most devastating war in human history. Today, we're diving deep into the heart of the American arsenal. We'll discover how a revolutionary semi-automatic rifle gave soldiers a decisive edge in firepower, how a submachine gun became the weapon of choice for elite paratroopers, how a machine gun held entire enemy advances at bay, and how a pistol became an eternal symbol of American military power. These are the four weapons that helped forge Allied victory. This is their story. December 7th, 1941. The attack on Pearl Harbor thrust America into a global conflict it could no longer ignore. Within hours, the United States declared war on Japan. Days later, on Germany and Italy. But America faced a daunting reality. While the nation possessed enormous industrial potential, its military was relatively small and under-equipped. The U.S. Army ranked just 17th in the world in 1939, behind Romania. The weapons of the First World War were outdated: bolt-action rifles, heavy, cumbersome machine guns, limited automatic weapons. Against the mechanized might of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, America needed more than courage. It needed a technological revolution. And that's exactly what it got. American industry transformed overnight. Automobile factories that once produced cars now manufactured tanks and aircraft. Typewriter companies made machine guns. Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, all retooled for war production. Springfield Armory ramped up rifle production to levels that seemed impossible. By 1943, America was producing more weapons than all Axis powers combined. Over 6 million M1 Garand rifles, 1.5 million Thompson submachine guns, hundreds of thousands of Browning machine guns. But quantity meant nothing without quality. American weapons had to work in the deserts of North Africa, the jungles of the Pacific, the frozen forests of Belgium, and the hedgerows of France. They had to be reliable, effective, and capable of giving American soldiers the edge they desperately needed. These weapons didn't just arm the military, they defined modern tactics: mobility, firepower, flexibility. The American way of war was being forged in steel and gunpowder. Wars aren't won by soldiers alone. They're won with the right tools in the right hands at the right moment. Every weapon tells a story of the engineers who designed it, the workers who built it, and the soldiers who trusted their lives to it. Now, let's meet these four legends, one by one. Let's understand why they mattered, why they worked, and why decades later they're still remembered as some of the finest weapons ever made. The M1 Garand rifle. In 1936, a Canadian-American inventor named John C. Garand achieved something no other firearms designer had accomplished. He created a semi-automatic rifle reliable enough, simple enough, and robust enough to become standard issue for an entire army. The M1 Garand wasn't just an incremental improvement, it was a revolution. Consider the standard infantry weapons of the era. German soldiers carried the Carabiner 98K, a superb bolt-action rifle, but one that required manual cycling after every shot. Japanese forces used the Arasaka Type 99, similarly effective, similarly slow. British troops relied on the Lee Enfield, fast for a bolt action, but still fundamentally limited. An experienced soldier with a bolt-action rifle could fire perhaps 15 aimed shots per minute. A soldier with an M1 Garand, 40 to 50 shots per minute, 3 times the firepower. This wasn't just about speed, it was about tactics. American infantrymen could advance while shooting, they could suppress enemy positions more effectively, they could respond to ambushes faster. The genius was in the mechanism. The M1 used gas-operated semi-automatic action. When fired, expanding gases pushed a piston that ejected the spent cartridge and loaded the next round automatically. The shooter never took his eyes off the target. It fired the powerful .30-06 Springfield cartridge, accurate up to 500 yards in the hands of a trained marksman. 8 rounds per clip, loaded from the top. And then there was that sound, the distinctive metallic ping when the clip ejected. Some claimed it was a tactical disadvantage. Enemy soldiers could hear when you were empty. But in the chaos of real combat, that theory rarely held. The psychological impact worked both ways. That ping meant an American soldier was reloading and about to unleash another 8 rounds. General George S. Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. He wasn't exaggerating. On D-Day, American soldiers waded through the surf at Omaha Beach with M1 Garands. Despite the saltwater, sand, and chaos, the rifles kept firing. In the hedgerows of France, where combat happened at close range through thick vegetation, the M1's rapid fire saved countless lives. In the Pacific, conditions were even worse: humidity, mud, saltwater corrosion. Yet the M1 proved remarkably reliable. Marines and Army soldiers fought through jungles, island to island, trusting this rifle with their lives. Veterans who carried the M1 spoke of it with reverence. One soldier wrote home, "The Garand is more than a weapon, it's the reason I'm still alive." Another wrote, "I cleaned that rifle every night, talked to it, trusted it completely. It never let me down." Maintenance was critical, but simple. The M1 was designed to be field stripped by any soldier in minutes. Even under combat conditions, basic cleaning kept it operational. By war's end, over 6 million M1 Garands had been manufactured. It served through Korea, Vietnam, and beyond. Some variants remain in ceremonial use today. The M1 Garand didn't just arm American infantry, it redefined what infantry could do. It proved that semi-automatic rifles weren't just possible, they were essential. And it gave American soldiers an edge that, in countless firefights, made all the difference between victory and defeat. The Thompson submachine gun. Before it became a weapon of war, the Thompson submachine gun had a very different reputation. In the 1920s and 30s, this weapon was synonymous with organized crime, Chicago, Al Capone, bank robberies and shootouts. Newspapers called it the Tommy gun. Law enforcement feared it. Hollywood glamorized it. But when America entered World War II, military planners saw something different. They saw a compact, powerful weapon perfect for close-quarters combat. They saw a submachine gun that could deliver devastating firepower when it mattered most. The Thompson model of 1928 had been around since, appropriately, 1928. It fired the .45 ACP pistol cartridge, the same round used in the M1911 pistol. But unlike a pistol, it fired fully automatic. Pull the trigger and hold it, the Thompson could unleash 600 to 700 rounds per minute. The design was elegant. Simple blowback operation, heavy bolt, solid construction. John T. Thompson, its inventor, had originally envisioned it as a trench broom for World War I. Though it arrived too late for that conflict, it found its purpose in the next. The Thompson became the weapon of choice for American paratroopers. When you're jumping behind enemy lines with limited equipment, you need a weapon that's reliable, compact, and hits hard. The Thompson delivered on all three. On the night before D-Day, American paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions dropped into Normandy. Many carried Thompsons. In the chaotic hours that followed, scattered drops, nighttime firefights, clearing German positions, the Thompson proved its worth. Urban combat, building-to-building fighting, the Thompson excelled. Its rate of fire and stopping power made it devastating in confined spaces. A short burst could clear a room. German soldiers learned to fear the distinctive sound of a Thompson opening up. In the Pacific, the Thompson found another perfect environment: dense jungle, close-range engagements, limited visibility. The Marines particularly loved it for these conditions. From Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, Marines used Thompsons to fight through Japanese defensive positions. In the brutal cave-clearing operations that defined Pacific Island warfare, the Thompson's firepower was essential. The Thompson also became a symbol of leadership. Officers, sergeants, squad leaders, many chose to carry Thompsons instead of rifles. It signaled authority and firepower in equal measure. But the Thompson had drawbacks. It was heavy, over 10 pounds fully loaded. It was expensive, nearly $200 in 1940s dollars, when a standard rifle cost $85. Its intricate machining required skilled labor and time. As the war progressed, the design was simplified. The M1A1 Thompson eliminated the drum magazine and expensive machined parts. The result was cheaper, lighter, and faster to produce, though still heavier and more expensive than alternatives like the M3 grease gun that would partially replace it. Despite its limitations, approximately 1.5 million Thompsons were produced during World War II. That number speaks to its value. When commanders needed a weapon for close combat, they wanted Thompsons. Soldiers who carried them developed deep affection for the weapon. One paratrooper recalled, "That Thompson was like holding controlled thunder. When you squeezed the trigger, you knew you had firepower." The Thompson submachine gun transformed from a symbol of lawlessness to an icon of American military might. It armed elite forces, saved lives in desperate situations, and proved that in close combat, rapid firepower can mean the difference between success and disaster. The Browning M1919 machine gun. If one name defines American firearms innovation, it's John Moses Browning. Born in 1855, Browning designed over 128 firearm patents. His designs included shotguns, pistols, rifles, and most famously, machine guns. The M1911 pistol, Browning. The Browning automatic rifle, Browning, and the weapon that would provide the backbone of American firepower in World War II, the Browning M1919 machine gun. The M1919 was a .30 caliber air-cooled belt-fed machine gun. It evolved from the M1917, which itself had proven devastatingly effective in World War I. But the M1919 was lighter, more portable, and more versatile. Weighing about 31 pounds, not including the tripod, it required a crew of 2 or 3 men, one gunner, one assistant gunner to feed ammunition and watch for targets, sometimes a third to carry extra ammunition and equipment. The M1919 could fire 400 to 600 rounds per minute. In sustained fire mode, it could maintain this rate for extended periods thanks to its air-cooled barrel design. This wasn't a weapon for quick bursts, this was for suppression, for defense, for holding the line. The tactical value of the M1919 cannot be overstated. In defensive operations, a single M1919 could cover vast areas, forcing enemy forces to take cover, disrupting their advances, and buying time for friendly forces to maneuver. In the mountains of Italy, M1919 crews set up positions on strategic high ground. German advances up narrow valleys met walls of sustained machine gun fire. Many attacks broke before they even began. In the Normandy's hedgerow country, the M1919 proved essential. German counterattacks ran into prepared positions where M1919s created interlocking fields of fire. The sound of multiple M1919s firing simultaneously became synonymous with American defensive strength. But the M1919's versatility extended beyond static defense. It was mounted on virtually every American vehicle. Jeeps carried M1919s for mobile firepower. Half-tracks bristled with them. Tanks had them as coaxial and bow-mounted secondary weapons. The M1919 even served on PT boats and as flexible defensive guns on bombers, though specialized variants were developed for these roles. Ammunition came in 250-round cloth belts or metal-linked belts. A well-trained crew could change belts in seconds, maintaining nearly continuous fire when necessary. Reliability was the M1919's hallmark. Built from forged steel, designed with tolerances that allowed it to function even when dirty, the M1919 rarely jammed. In the hands of a competent crew, it was devastatingly effective. Training emphasized three principles: sustained fire, target discipline, and teamwork. A machine gun crew functioned as a unit. The gunner aimed and fired. The assistant gunner fed ammunition and called out targets. Together, they could dominate a battlefield. At night, tracer rounds, every fifth bullet coated with material that burned bright, allowed gunners to adjust fire. The effect was both practical and psychological. Streams of tracers cutting through darkness were terrifying to anyone on the receiving end. Veterans who served on M1919 crews spoke of the weapon with professional respect. One gunner recalled, "You learned to love that gun. It never quit on you. Feed it ammo and keep it clean, it would fire all day." Another assistant gunner remembered, "We were a team, me and Johnson and that Browning. We kept our squad alive more times than I can count." The United States produced over 400,000 M1919s during World War II. They served in every theater, in every type of terrain, in every role imaginable. After World War II, the M1919 continued serving: Korea, Vietnam. Some variants remained in active service into the 1960s and 70s. Even today, M1919s can be found in reserve stocks and Allied nations' arsenals. The Browning M1919 represented American firepower at its most fundamental. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't revolutionary, it was simply reliable, effective, and utterly deadly. It held lines that couldn't be held. It broke attacks that couldn't be broken. And it proved that sometimes the most important weapon is the one that never fails. 4. The M1911 A1 pistol. Some weapons become legends. The M1911 A1 pistol transcended that. It became an icon. The story begins in 1899 in the jungles of the Philippines. American forces were fighting Moro warriors who, even when shot multiple times with standard-issue .38 caliber revolvers, continued attacking. The .38 simply lacked stopping power. The U.S. Army needed something more powerful, something that would stop an enemy with 1 or 2 shots. In 1906, they began testing pistols chambered in .45 caliber. Once again, John Browning provided the answer. His design, a semi-automatic pistol firing the .45 ACP, automatic Colt pistol cartridge. In 1911, the Army officially adopted it. The designation, M1911. The M1911 was a recoil-operated, magazine-fed, semi-automatic pistol. 7 rounds in the magazine, plus 1 in the chamber. Simple, robust, and powerful.
The .45 ACP cartridge was a heavy, relatively slow-moving bullet, but that mass and size translated to tremendous stopping power. A single hit could incapacitate an enemy immediately. The M1911 proved itself in World War I. Officers, military police, and specialized troops carried it. But it was in World War II that the pistol truly became ubiquitous. In 1926, minor improvements led to the M1911A1 designation: wider front sight, shorter trigger, improved grip. These changes made the pistol even more effective. In World War II, the M1911A1 was issued to officers, tank crews, military police, and paratroopers. For anyone whose primary role wasn't infantry combat, but who still needed personal protection, the M1911 was the answer. Tank crews particularly valued it. Inside the cramped confines of a Sherman or Stuart tank, a rifle was useless, but a pistol? That could save your life if you had to abandon your vehicle or defend yourself in close quarters. Pilots carried M1911s as survival weapons. If shot down behind enemy lines, a pistol might mean the difference between capture and escape. The M1911's reliability in extreme conditions, cold, heat, and moisture, made it perfect for this role. For officers, the M1911 was both a practical weapon and a symbol of authority. It was lighter than carrying a rifle, left hands free for maps and radios, yet provided serious firepower when needed. The M1911A1's reputation for durability was well earned. Soldiers dragged them through mud, sand, and salt water. They dropped them, threw them, and subjected them to abuse that would destroy lesser weapons, and still they fired. The design was brilliantly simple. Fewer parts meant fewer failure points. A soldier could field strip and reassemble an M1911 in under a minute. Maintenance was straightforward. Clean the barrel, oil the moving parts, check the magazine spring. That was essentially it. While pistols rarely played decisive roles in large-scale combat, there were countless individual moments where an M1911 made all the difference. A tank commander whose crew had to bail out using his M1911 to hold off enemies while his men escaped. A pilot shot down over France, surviving 5 days behind enemy lines with only his pistol. An MP stopping infiltrators at a supply depot. The M1911A1 served through Korea, Vietnam, and officially remained in U.S. military service until 1985, 74 years after its initial adoption. Even after official replacement by the Beretta M9, many special operations units continued using M1911 variants. Today, over a century after its introduction, the M1911 platform remains popular. Competitive shooters use it. Law enforcement agencies issue it. Civilians carry it for personal protection. It has inspired countless variants and copies. Few weapons can claim such longevity. The M1911A1 succeeded not through revolutionary technology, but through perfected simplicity. It was powerful, reliable, and effective. Everything a combat pistol should be.
4 weapons, 4 distinct roles. Together, they created a system of firepower that gave American forces a decisive advantage. The M1 Garand provided infantry with superior firepower and rate of fire, allowing them to advance under fire and overwhelm enemy positions. The Thompson gave elite forces and close-quarter specialists the ability to deliver devastating bursts when it mattered most. The Browning 1919 anchored defensive positions and provided sustained suppressive fire that shaped the battlefield. And the M1911A1 ensured that even soldiers whose primary role wasn't combat still had reliable, powerful protection. This wasn't coincidence. This was American military doctrine refined into steel. Mobility, firepower, flexibility. These weapons didn't just arm soldiers, they enabled tactics that won battles. The impact of these weapons extended far beyond World War II. They fundamentally changed how modern militaries think about infantry armament. In Korea, the M1 Garand in 1911 continued service. The Browning 1919 remained the standard machine gun. These weapons proved their value in a completely different conflict. Even in Vietnam, elements of this arsenal remained. The 1911 served throughout the conflict. The 1919 saw action in various roles, and the lessons learned from the M1 Garand directly influenced the development of the M14 and later the M16. Today's American infantry carries the M4 carbine, a spiritual descendant of the Garand's philosophy, give every soldier significant firepower. The M240 machine gun serves the same role the M1919 did. Modern pistols still owe design elements to the M1911. John Browning's influence extends to nearly every modern firearm. His design principles, simplicity, reliability, effectiveness, remain the gold standard. The American firearms industry that exploded during World War II created expertise and infrastructure that continues to this day. Companies that produced these weapons evolved into modern defense contractors. These weapons armed not just American forces, but allied nations worldwide. Through the Lend-Lease program and military assistance, M1 Garands and Thompsons equipped Free French, British, Soviet, and Chinese forces. American weapons became a symbol of Allied cooperation. Over 6 million M1 Garands, 1.5 million Thompsons, 400,000 plus Browning 1919s, nearly 3 million M1911 pistols. These numbers represent the largest mobilization of industrial firepower in history. But these weapons also represent something else: the American home front's contribution to victory. The factory workers who built them, the engineers who refined them, the logistics personnel who shipped them. Victory wasn't won just on battlefields. It was forged in factories, tested on firing ranges, and delivered across oceans. For the soldiers who carried these weapons, they became more than tools. They were companions through hell. Many veterans requested to keep their weapons after the war. Some succeeded. Those weapons became family heirlooms carried through 3 generations. 16 million Americans served in World War II. 400,000 never came home. For those who survived, victory came at tremendous cost. These 4 weapons were present at every major American battle of the war, from North Africa to Italy, from Normandy to Berlin, from Guadalcanal to Okinawa. They were there when young men climbed out of landing craft into withering fire, when paratroopers jumped into darkness behind enemy lines, when machine gun crews held impossible positions, when tank crews fought street to street through shattered cities. Victory wasn't guaranteed by superior weapons. It was earned by the courage of those who carried them. But having the right tools, reliable, effective, powerful tools, gave those brave men a fighting chance. These weren't just weapons, they were instruments of liberation. They helped free Europe from fascism. They defeated imperialism in the Pacific. They defended democracy when it mattered most. The M1 Garand, the Thompson, the Browning M1919, the M1911A1. 4 weapons, 4 legends. Together, they helped change the course of history. The war may have ended decades ago, but these weapons and the men who carried them will never be forgotten.